Question: do podcasts have cold opens? Because if they don't, they do now. I'd already completed the episode by the time I wanted to add this little bit. And it's really just to say thank you to everyone who reached out over the past week about the podcast, and also to say thanks to those who said they would share the pod on social media, chat groups, Discord, etc. That really means a lot, thank you. There were some great suggestions as well for possible future guests, so by all means keep them coming. And finally, for those who've been asking about getting the podcast onto Apple, I'm working on it, hope to have some news soon. Right, let's get this show on the road, and that means handing over to clips of me getting excited on a basketball commentary. Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Game's going to be decided here. Harrell spots up, doesn't go, put back is good! Roberto Canada with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunther for three, got it! Per Gunther, drei Punkte! Courage inside for Gordon for the dunk! Ball game! You feel like he's going to take the shot. He does. He makes it! Big bucket for Will Cummings!
It's episode 2 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one From Pleven to the Playoffs. Later on, we'll be talking about a recent London Lions edition. But first up, my featured guest this week is Andreas Kapoulas, head coach of the Bristol Flyers. With the club since they were formed, he's overseen their rise through the national leagues into what was the BBL. I first got to know Andreas when I was working for the BBL media team, not long after the Flyers joined the league. I always enjoy catching up with him when I can, and was delighted he agreed to be one of the first interviews for this podcast. The Flyers are one of those clubs that I love to visit, and if you've never been to a Flyers game, I'd encourage you to go there sometime. It's a small venue, too small for their future needs and why they need that new arena. But because it sells out every game, that small packed venue can make for a great atmosphere on game night. As the interview with Andreas, this was a chance to talk about the ENBL, balancing Europe the domestic game, and also a chance to talk about his favourite Euroleague team. Apologies in advance for the occasional sound issue in this interview, but hey, that's modern technology for you. So, without further ado, let's get to it. If we go back to last year, what did it mean for you, all the years you've been with Bristol, of course this 20th anniversary season, to be able to take a team and play in European competition?
Yeah, I mean, it was a historic moment for the program. I mean, when we first started back in 2005, just entering NBL Division 3, you don't think, 19 years later, you're going to be playing in European competition. So for us to make the transition from an NBL club to the BBL, and then to have the opportunity to play in a European competition like the ENBL was a pretty big moment. And it meant a lot to everyone, not just myself, everyone that has been involved in the program over the years and has been part of this journey that we've been through. It meant a lot. So it's been, I think in one of the interviews, it was 19 years in the making. And to see the transition of the youth program and having players like Corey Samuels, who has come through our pathway to, starting when he was 11, 12 years old, looking at players like Greg Street, who were playing back on those NBL teams and now actually playing in European competition, really captures a lot of what the significant milestone for the program it has been.
Obviously, we're going to talk about the upcoming season, but let's just look back at last year. What were your personal highlights of that campaign?
Yeah, I mean, when we enter the competition, I think for us, this first year in NBL was about finding out what it takes to compete on and off the court against teams from a lot of different European leagues. So we were not going with very high expectations. We're hoping we can win a couple of games, and if we could make a postseason run, great. We started with a big win in Pleven, which was a great moment, and we had some great performances. And to be able to progress into the playoff and play the Lithuanian team in the quarterfinal, I think that was a huge achievement. So we exceeded expectations, and we found ourselves, having a winning record in the group stages, and it was a strong group. Obviously, Back and Bears went on to win the whole of the competition. So, it was certainly exceeded expectations. But at the same time, it was a great season for us to find out exactly what we enter the competition, what it takes on and off the court to compete at that stage.
Does the fact, obviously, because obviously you're in the Super League this season, you're back in the ENBL, does the fact you're also playing Europe change the way you recruit your squads each season now?
I think what we found out is playing in the ENBL, actually, they find it very difficult to play with our style and our identity. And I think we didn't actually change the lot of our recruitment. Certainly, our recruitment this year, it's about having more athleticism, length, better shooting ability. But that didn't really change how we want to play in those European competitions and how we recruit ourselves. I think our identity has always been based around defense, rebounding, playing fast, and I think a lot of the European teams found that very difficult to cope with. So we definitely have our own unique style. And certainly, there were some areas that we identified this summer that we wanted to do better in the domestic competition that also formed our recruitment for the NBL. But the one thing that we did find about the European competitions, obviously, we had a lot of injuries this year. It wasn't actually relating so much to us playing two competitions. A lot of people will make that assumption that because we had more games, I think some of them were just freak injuries. We had guys taking charges, landing on their wrist, and hamstring injuries, and all sorts of things that were not necessarily coming down to loading. But the one thing, certainly, when you're playing European competition, you need more depth in your roster because you might have a season like we had this past year with injuries. So I think that was one thing. Just having that extra load depth, if we do pick up any injury, is going to be important. So that was one aspect, I suppose, that we did take in consideration with recruitment this coming year.
And they're just looking forward to this season. I mean, what a schedule. I mean, obviously, you get a chance to play back and Bears again, but you've got Bamberg. And also, you've got the Walsall team as well. That's three tough teams in your opening 3 games of the competition.
Really look forward to it. It is definitely a tough way to start the NBL competition. And certainly going into that second year, coming from a year where we already made the playoffs, we want to make another run and go a step further. But at the same time, it's such a great opportunity to go against such teams. I mean, Back and Bears, the champions of the NBL, I think they've won the Danish championship the last 10 years. Bamberg, with all their history playing European competition basketball, playing in the highest level in Euroleague, and the success they've had over the years in the domestic league. And then a team like Legia, again, it's a big football club in Warsaw and with a lot of history. So I think for us, that's exactly why we enter European competition, to challenge ourselves, and it goes back to what it takes to compete on the court. So certainly we relish these opportunities. I know the players are going to be very excited. It's a unique selling point as well. Like suddenly players coming to Bristol, knowing that they will play a team like Bamberg, a team like Back and Bears. I think it's great.
Does that help your profile then? The fact that you're playing in Europe, you're getting obviously more eyes on you. That helps you when you put your team together?
Certainly. I mean, I think one of the first things that a lot of agents were asking at the start of our recruitment process, are you guys going to be playing European competition again? Are you going to be playing in the ENBL? And I think that has played a lot of part. It has opened a lot of doors. Certainly to have those initial conversations, which maybe you will not be able to speak to certain agents about particular players if perhaps we were not playing in the NBL. But I think the NBL is a great league. It's growing. It's entering its 4th year now. And I think the level of competition is rising as well. And you can see how many teams from different countries wanted to enter. The initial years of the NBL, you had a lot of teams from Poland or from Lithuania. Now there is a lot more variety and the competition. I mean, to have a team from Germany, I think that's great for the NBL. And also it shows backend who usually enter, the qualification rounds for the Champions League and they look to playing in FIBA Europe Cup, actually made the decision this year to enter the NBL because it works well. The games are spread out. You get 8 games for home, 4 away, and then you have the playoffs. So in some occasions, you actually get more games playing in the NBL schedule rather than actually when you're playing in FIBA Europe Cup if you get knocked out in the early rounds. So I think we're going to see a change in the behaviors of teams like Bamberg, who decide to actually enter the ENBL competition. So it's a growing competition, and it's great for us as a club. We're in a journey. We talked about this. We're entering our 20th year anniversary, and we're growing, and the European League is growing. So I think it's a perfect match.
From a British point of view, obviously Newcastle were in the competition last year as well. What's it mean to you to see two British teams entering that competition and obviously both making the playoffs?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's great to see a club like Newcastle with the tradition that they have and the success they've had in the BBL, and to see them playing in the ENBL. And I think for us, a club that has gone through this journey from transition from NBL to BBL, I think to have two British teams, it's great. It speaks a lot about the level of competition in our league. I think, over the years, we've had teams like Leicester enter European competition, maybe play for 1 year. But I think to see ourselves and Newcastle taking part in the competition and returning this season as well. And also, the reality is both us and Newcastle, they finished 6th and 7th in the BBL this past season, and we competed. Newcastle was very close in knocking out Batkin from the Final Four. We made it to the playoffs of that competition, but we were not in the top four of our domestic league. We chose actually the quality of play that our domestic league has. And it has raised the profile of our league. Certainly the success the London Lions had in the Euro Cup undeniably has raised the profile and the exposure of our league. But then to have ourselves and Newcastle, but also Caledonia as well, who played in the qualifying rounds of the Champions League and then in the FIBA Europe Cup, it shows that we can compete with some leagues that perhaps maybe are considered higher level leagues than our league. But then, like we went and beat in Poland a team like Lublin, who at the time, I think they were second at the time when we beat them. We beat them by 20 points in their home court. So suddenly, I think that perception of British basketball that our teams cannot go and compete in Europe, or some leagues are higher level leagues than ours, actually that's changing the narrative. So certainly the success that we've had, Newcastle have had, I think, and obviously the success teams like London and Caledonia is changing the narrative. British teams can compete at that level, and I think that has been a great story behind our first year in the ENBL.
I suppose it's good not only for yourself, obviously gives you a challenge of scouting more teams, playing against more teams, but the fans will get to see at least 4 teams come to Bristol. Well, I should say 4 different teams come to Bristol this season.
Yeah, and I think it makes a difference. Suddenly, I mean, we had a situation last year where we'll play the same team twice within a week, but actually in between we had an ENBL game. So I think it's great to be able to play a different teams, different styles of play. And so from a preparation perspective, in our leagues, you play sometimes teams like 4 to 6 times in a season. So I think to have that break and play a different style, be able to scout different style of players, it's very good. And certainly, having those breaks in our season and playing those midweek games. Those midweek games give you something different. They break the week in a nice way, and certainly playing at home and the level of opposition that we're going to play. I mean, what a great opportunity, not just for Bristol fans, but maybe if someone is living in the nearby areas to come and see teams like Bamberg and Legia. I think that's going to be a great opportunity. I think also it's reaching to a new audience. Certainly, there is a big police community in Bristol. So playing a club like Legia, what a great opportunity to engage with these communities and hopefully maintain them and make them more fans of our British league as well. So there is so many positives of playing in European competition. If it's the home games we're going to play and the opposition and the new audience that we can reach on midweek games, but also that break and the opportunity to play different style teams that we will play usually in our league.
You just brought up something about obviously fans. I mean, last season you had a core of fans who followed you on the road, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, in our first game, we had 3 of our supporters that traveled all the way to Pleven, and Pleven is not the easiest place to get to. And I think actually they also had a fire in the airport, and I think had to claim insurance for their car. I think two of our fans that travel with us. Yeah, it was quite adventurous, but they've enjoyed being there. I mean, having them there, and it was a loud place, Pleven. Great atmosphere. And also in Lublin as well, we had an amazing turnout. We had more fans, unbelievable, in a 5,000 seat arena. We actually had more fans than what Lublin had on their home court, which was great. It just kind of shows that a lot of people decided to make the trip. And this year, we're hoping that's going to be the case as well. It just, it gives the opportunity to our fans to experience something different. And a midweek game going somewhere like in Poland or going in Bulgaria, a lot of different destinations. And I've got a feeling this, we're playing teams like Bakken on the road. That's our first away game.
You obviously got back and on the road, but you were better on the road, weren't you, than you were at home last season? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say. And again, that was a surprise for us. I mean, our home court has always been very strong. We had close games. Also you play home and away. It just depends a little bit on the draw. Who do you get to play at home? And some of our home games were like teams like Bakken and Juventus, who finished top on our group. But again, those games were very competitive. The Bakken game, I think we lost by 3 points, if I'm correct, and we were up at some point like double digits early in the game. And the Juventus game went all the way down to the line. It came down to the last play. Corey Samuels hit a huge three to tie the game, and with a minute, it could have gone either way. So certainly, we had more success on the road, and I think those European games on the road are a little bit different to the domestic games on the road because we travel and we stay away for a couple of nights. Usually, with most domestic games, you travel on the day and you come back after the game. So I think that also was a great opportunity, that camaraderie, to come together. And we know we're up against it. We play in some difficult environments. We know we're up against it in Pleven. We knew we were up against it in Lublin. So I think that helps our mentality. And it's a great experience. I didn't mention it's a great experience for our players as well. We have some players of ours that have never traveled to Europe, and to be able to come to Bristol and see different places. If it's Pleven and how different life is there, or if it's Lublin, I think that's also a very great cultural experience as well.
And heading into this season, what will be the goals for the ENBL? Obviously, you reached the playoffs this year. Are you going to try and say, right, let's at least reach it again? Or do you think you have a chance of the Final Four?
The goal is to win a championship, if it's domestic or if it's in European competition. Certainly we set high expectations from our performances last year. But again, it's getting out of the group, making it to the playoffs, and see if we can get it to the final, or why not? It's got to be difficult. We have a difficult group. We've got to be realistic about that. But that doesn't mean that it's not achievable. We just got to take it one game at a time and enjoy it. I think that the thing with the European competition is, and the group that we have, we've got to go there and really enjoy and take it one game at a time. It's very cliche, but I think that's what it is about, basically. Make the most of the opportunity and see if we can get some wins under our belt early. And also, I think as much as it's tough, I think it's also a positive playing teams like Bamberg and Bakken, because that will help the development of our team. Playing those type of teams early will be very beneficial to our brand of basketball. And let's see if we can make some noise again this second year in the ENBL.
I mean, obviously, we're talking about that schedule. I mean, obviously, the tickets came on sale for the 4 games at home in ENBL. Of course, you're starting off with Bamberg and then Legia come to visit. And that's 2 huge games to start off. Those games are going to sell out, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping so. Our venue is not the biggest venue in our league. So certainly, we're expecting a sellout for them. And the magnitude of teams that we're playing, basically, given the European community, given the Polish community that we have in Bristol, we expect a full house. And it's going to be a great occasion to start the NBL. I mean, again, like the way the schedule is, I think in 4 weeks we have 3 home games. So the first 2 with Bamberg and Legia are going to be very crucial in terms of our performance. And you mentioned, having a lot of success last year on the road. You need to start from winning your home game. So certainly getting some home W's under our belt will be crucial for us if we want to make another run in the ENBL. They're two difficult games, and we need to see if we can get some wins. And certainly our place gets, you've been to it, it gets really loud, and fans are going to be there. It's going to be really exciting to play those type of teams. And our roster this year is going to be a new look roster, a lot of new faces, but we also have a strong British core returning, and we also have some players that have come through our pathway. If it's Corey Samuels, we have a 16-year-old player, Corey Hill. His father has been a volunteer and a coach for the club, and his brother has played for the club. And now Corey at 16 has some international experience with the GB and England programs. And what a great occasion to be playing on your home court, basically. And why not? Maybe an opportunity for a 16-year-old to get on the court and make some plays. I think it's going to be. It goes back to what a huge milestone it has been for the program in terms of playing ENBL, to be our 20th season and playing those type of teams on your home court. It means a lot. I've been here from day one. Nick, my assistant coach, has been here from day one. To see this and to see what we've built in Bristol, it has been a real team effort.
How important is it for you to play in European competition? Is this something you want to try and do every year if you can, if it's possible?
Yeah, I think for us, it has always been a goal to play in European competition. I think it's always about growth. I think that's the big thing for us as a club. We're hoping to hear soon about our facility. That has been delayed due to factors outside of our control. Our facility is going to be a 5,000-seat arena next to the football stadium at Aston Gate, and that has been delayed, and it has been delayed by a few years. But the one thing we didn't want to stop the progress that our club has had over these last 19 years. And certainly playing in the ENBL allows us to carry on progressing on and off the court while we're waiting for a new venue. And we're hoping a new venue is going to be ready sooner rather than later. And we're hoping to be playing high-level European competition. The ENBL is growing. I mentioned it before. And I think for us, it's the perfect competition to where we are right now. We have high aspirations, and the ENBL has so as well. So from my perspective, we're looking to play European competition year in, year out. I think it's a great thing to be able to do. And one of the things is I didn't want this going this year into this past season in the ENBL. I didn't want it to be a one-off thing. I didn't want us to play for a year and then just go out. It has to be sustainable. It's about long term. We want to build on this. We don't want to take the learnings from what it takes to play European competition and then wait for another 4 or 5 years to do it again. We want to keep on building. So certainly I think our ambition as a club is to continue to participate in the NBL and certainly the development of our league and the development of our venue help us to be able to progress even further. The NBL is a great competition for us, and we're planning to participate long term in it.
And then I just want to bring it to a close by talking about you and your love for basketball. Of course, I know you well. I know you're a big Olympiacos fan. Obviously, they play in Euroleague, which is the pinnacle of European basketball. I mean, I know you're not at the stage where you could ever play against them, but imagine one day you're in a competition and you get drawn against Olympiacos. What would that mean for you personally?
Well, I have the opportunity with the national team to face off against Greece. It's happened a few times. It's happened at under 20s level, and it's happened with the men as well. And that's a special moment, when you hear the Greek national anthem, and you go against your home nation. So I think that has been a special moment for me. A lot of times I'm being asked what that means to me. It's a special feeling, but at the same time, we want to beat them. And we have done that, and obviously we have them again in the November window, and hopefully we can get ourselves a W there. So I think playing against Greece gives me a little bit of a feel what it would be like playing against the club that I support in Olympiacos. When you grow up, usually when you grow up in Athens and when you grow up in Greece, you're either a green or a red fan, right? And it's a family thing. and it's a little bit like religion. So I grew up. My father was an Olympiacos fan. I grew up as an Olympiacos fan, and certainly, my first ever basketball game that I watched was an Olympiacos versus Panathinaikos game. And you mentioned guys like Spanoulis. I mean, my personal, I was like, there's a guy called Zarko Paspali, and I liked his style of game and how he played. He was a lefty, and he obviously was a national team player for Yugoslavia and Serbia. So I think for me, my love goes back a long way. I mean, I fell in love with basketball, but I fell in love watching Olympiacos play. And I remember some big disappointments that Olympiacos has had in European Final Fours, but also some great success in recent years. And that's Spanouli's game where he went off from the 3-point line against Real Madrid. I mean, that's a special memory. Basically, I remember being at the O2 in London, and Spanouli's doing his thing. I think there's so many different memories, and certainly Olympiacos fuel my love of basketball.
Yeah, I promised I wouldn't talk about this year's Final Four, of course. We'll leave that one be. But I mean, just going to that, I mean, obviously went to Berlin in May. There's just something special. I mean, British basketball finals, like when was the BBL, now the Super League at the O2. It's a good day out, a lot of atmosphere. NBA games, a lot of atmosphere. But a EuroLeague Final Four is just, for me, off the charts. It's something different, the atmosphere at a Final Four.
I mean, going to the London one, I had the opportunity to do that. And, I think it was great to see all the fans, all the Greek fans there and everything. I think whenever you get a chance to see a Final Four, I agree with you. I think it's an incredible experience. And, you can go to NBA finals or different things. I think watching a EuroLeague Final Four, especially when you have these great rivalries, if it's Barcelona versus Real Madrid, or if it's Olympiacos versus Panathinaikos, whichever way it goes. And I think that's something you cannot recreate, really. I think the atmosphere is different. I think it's certainly a great occasion. It's a celebration of basketball and the atmosphere. Sometimes you just stop yourself from watching the game and you just look around what's happening. Basically, if it's the Panathinaikos fans or if it's the Olympiacos fans or the Real Madrid or wherever, it's just a great occasion. In Tel Aviv, I remember Paspali missing 2 free throws. Olympiacos, losing to Barcelona. That was Zeljko Obradovic's first EuroLeague title, if I'm correct. Basically, with Barcelona with Cornelius Thompson making a three. He hadn't made a three all season long. He made that big three at the end of the game. There's so many fantastic memories, and EuroLeague Final Fours are just special.
Also, you've got ENBL, you've got Super League basketball, and also you've got the GB team as well. That's a lot to fit in a season.
It gets quite hectic. I think uh, from a club basketball perspective, we've got 46 games without playoffs and progressing to the next rounds of competitions as well. This past year, we played 51 games for club competition, and then certainly you have the national team commitments and the November, February windows and anything that goes on in the summer. It gets busy. You got to be able to balance everything together. I'm very grateful to be involved with the national team program and to have to be able to do this. It's also sometimes the November and February window helps to be able to refocus in terms of your club responsibilities. It's that break that you have with the national team for 7 to 8 days, and then you're able to go refocus. And it certainly helps the players to have a bit of a break during that time as well, but also from the coaches to switch focus a little bit into national team basketball as well. Mark Stuttle and Dan Clark have done a great job. And, we're in a very good position in terms of Eurobasket qualifications, having beaten Netherlands at home. We have the big November window against Greece, home and away. And then we have Czech Republic, Netherlands. We want to be back to the Eurobasket competition. We want to win in the Eurobasket competition. And I'm really grateful to be involved with the national team program. And even though everything is really hectic and you've got to be able to balance it, I will not change it for the world. You have in basketball, you have highs and lows, wins, losses, all those type of things. But then when you step back and you look at the whole thing, to have the opportunity to play in the domestic championship, I think this year the Super League basketball league is going to be like really, really strong. I mean, you see all the players signings and the coaches and everything. It's going to be such a great competition. The ENBL second year, I mean, having the likes of Bamberg and Bakken and everyone that we just already discussed. And then the national team competition plays the likes of Greece, Czech Republic with the players that they have. I mean, wow, what a great opportunity to be able to do all those things. It's not easy. I've got a very understanding wife and I've got a lot of support here. Like guys like Mike Atkins, who does everything from an operations perspective in the club. My assistant coaches, everyone there. Everyone is here to support myself and the team in terms of what we want to achieve. And I really look forward to this year, if it's club basketball or national team basketball.
I wish you all the best, Andreas. It obviously promises to be a very exciting season. I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, really appreciate it.
From Bristol to London, let's talk about one of the Lions' recent summer signings, Sean Flood. I'll admit, I didn't know a lot about Sean, so I thought, why not ask someone who does? The first name that popped into my head was Emmet Ryan. Well known amongst the European basketball community, Emmet is a journalist, commentator and analyst who runs Ball in Europe, and is the go-to guy for anything to do with Irish basketball. Let's hear what he had to say.
So, Emmet, welcome to the podcast. London Lions have signed Sean Flood. Now, to a lot of British fans, won't know much about him. What can you tell us about their new signing?
Niall, it's great to be here, and I'm guessing a few London Lions fans hearing my name being mentioned are kind of going, "Oh God, don't worry, there's nothing dramatic here in this one." Given most of the interaction Lions fans have had with me is my coverage of the takeover, but yeah, Sean, I've been following his career for quite a few years because, in addition to Ball in Europe, I do a lot of the analysis on the Irish national team for the broadcaster here, so I'd have seen an awful lot of him in the national team jersey more than anything else, really. He's good. It's a short version, so he's point guard. He's good shooter, very efficient. He's about 60 from two, about 40 from three last season with Den Helder. He was on a very bad team in the B Next League. Now, the B Next League, largely speaking, is a lot stronger than the BBL in terms of overall talent, I would say, from what I've seen. So now he wasn't one of the worst teams in that. Is the counterbalance, but it also meant he played heavy minutes. He was over 30 minutes a night there. And yeah, he's quite reliable. I suppose the couple of things to watch out for is his situational usage. Like, to me, Sean's best when there are other good ball handlers there. He's an excellent ball handler, but having him working with other guys who aren't turnover machines tends to make him more efficient, is how I best put it, because there's less pressure on him when it comes to mistakes. Like, he knows there are guys around him who aren't going to turn that ball over, so he can be more aggressive. And that's certainly an area that stands out for me. Like, he's probably, in terms of style, I would say he's the most professional style player I've seen on the Irish setup in a while, with the exception of Taiwo Badmus, who's obviously Irish born and bred, but moved to the UK, which is actually where he started playing his basketball and is now doing very well in Iceland. But yes, Sean, he's used to the format playing overseas, and he's like sort of embraced it more than I think an awful lot of our players. So love his efficiency, love his work rate, energy's not going to be an issue, and generally speaking, he's just a good baller. Like, he's more than capable of playing BBL level. We've seen that with what he's played before up to now, to be honest, that he's good enough for this level. I was genuinely surprised he went to the BBL, not so much from a financial perspective or a level perspective, but he seems to like places that are warmer. And after doing the year in the B Next League, I thought he'd try and get somewhere sunnier, to be honest, for his next stop.
Yeah, so he's moved up. He's played, I think, in Cyprus, in Austria with Katzenberg, and obviously the BNXT, as you said. So is he a player who's still rising, if you know what I mean? His stock is still going up.
I think so, yeah. He obviously had a solid underage international career with Ireland, which helped sort of get his profile up quite a bit. And he was playing with Templeogue as they were a rising club in Ireland. Like, they've gone on to win championships. They're more middle of the pack now, but he was sort of with them through their rise. Obviously, the league here is part-time. We only have a few pros on it. So the natural progression for Sean to really develop his career was to go overseas. And yeah, I think he certainly hasn't hit his peak yet. I would say that for sure. Like, I think we're still a year or two away from that. And this is obviously a chance for him to sort of develop his game more in a nation where you do speak the same language as us, which isn't too bad. It'll be a lot easier for friends and family to get over. I'm hoping to get over to one game before Christmas, but that depends on my other work schedule, which is quite variable, as you know, Niall. And I'm sure some of you who followed my other work will know that my work schedule can be a bit odd. But yeah, no, it's great to have him sort of, closer to home in terms of sort of friends and family being able to go over to see him. And also just for the Irish setup, the communication is going to be there always. Because with the national team setup, we only have so many people who are fully pro at the moment on it. Teo in Iceland is the closest geographically prior to Sean's move. I suppose you could argue Netherlands is closer as well, where he was before. But prior to Sean being the last 2 seasons, he was the closest of our pros. So yeah, it's only a positive, I think, really, for London to be getting a player of Sean's standard on board.
Right, last question then on Sean. If you were to pick one aspect of his game, his shooting, his passing, anything, his defense, what would you say the most standout thing Lions could look forward to this season from his game?
God, this is going to sound weird, but it's actually his alternating because he's a good passer and he's a good shooter, but that he can move to on and off ball quite easily is what I like the most about him. Like, he doesn't have to be the primary ball handler, but at the same time, he can be if that's what's needed. And his ability to switch between the two guard slots or to play in a 3 guard set, I think that's going to really stand out in terms of his versatility for the Lions.
And Emmet, we can't finish without giving you a little plug. What are you working on at the moment for Ball in Europe?
Too much is the short answer now, but yeah, we've got for those of you who aren't familiar with the site, it's gotten deliberately a lot more active this season. So we're having at least one article a day going up at the main site every weekday. That'll obviously increase as we actually hit the main season. Ball in Europe, it is a one-person operation for the time being. We hope to grow it by Eurobasket next year, but it's a while away. So for the time being, it's me learning an awful lot about the kit I'm using. It's been fascinating, though, to be honest. Like I was a BCL commentator last year. At the moment, it looks like I won't be this year, but hoping to get back on doing that. But naturally, the main focus for me in terms of once the season gets going, it's going to be EuroLeague and BCL in the weeknight evenings, getting some National League stuffs at the weekends, and early every morning we'll be watching an NBA game from the previous night to write about that. So it's going to be all go while I'm doing all my other work. I know Niall can empathize with this because he's also self-employed. It's a very odd life when you're self-employed, and thankfully I have a very, very understanding partner. By understanding, I mean their schedule is worse than mine, Shabangi says. So it's like, thankfully, someone who works even more than I do. So as a result, we're understanding of each other as needs be. So yeah, but if you can subscribe to the YouTube, folks, it's a huge help right now because we're trying to get more views, get more interest, and whatever you're into in basketball, we're doing stuff on it. Like we're doing NBA, we're doing Europe, we're doing a lot of local leagues stuff, and we also do my basketball travels. We've got an Iceland trip coming up, which is going to be interesting. There's plans for other trips between now and Christmas, and we're just trying to tell basketball stories from around the world, but obviously with a European focus, and that will naturally include the UK as we go along. There is the Zalgiris London series, which is available as a playlist on the site to follow through the entire drama of me accidentally breaking the story that Zalgiris are taking over, to eventually talking for Frank Dalares, who got the real proper reporting done afterwards, Frank from City AM, and many twists and turns in between. So if you're a UK basketball fan, that's definitely worth your while.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Emmet. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, Niall. Great talking to you.
Next up, let's talk BCL. Caledonia Gladiators are back in Basketball Champions League action on Tuesday 17th. They head to Turkey to take on Romanian side Oradea in the first round qualifying. No British team has ever won a BCL qualifier, so a victory for Caledonia would be a bit of history. They would need to win 3 qualifiers to reach the group stages, and if they don't, the Scottish side will drop into the FIBA Europe Cup group stage for the second year running. As it currently stands, the Gladiators qualifying game will be streamed via the official Basketball Champions League YouTube page. If you head over there, the links are already up. From BCL to Pro A, and on the pod last week, Vince McCauley mentioned how you could watch the Artland Dragons games online this season. I can tell you those games will be streamed on sportdeutschland.tv. That's sportdeutschland.tv. And don't worry, we'll post links. And finally, if you're enjoying what we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, or even share the pod. Without you, these podcasts would in fact just be me having a chat with a friend that no one else wanted to listen to. Until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.